single dad found a crying ex-convict with her baby in the rain, unaware she'd lost everything but hope. What Marcus didn't know was that the woman shivering under that bus shelter would become the key to exposing the corruption that had destroyed both their lives. The rain hit like needles against Marcus Reed's windshield. He squinted through the downpour, his construction-worn hands gripping the wheel as lightning split the Seattle sky. 11:47 p.m. on a Wednesday. 14-hour shift. Bone-tired didn't begin to cover it. That's when his headlights caught them. A woman hunched beneath a broken bus shelter, clutching an infant wrapped in what looked like a prison-issue blanket. Both soaked through. Something about the way she held that child, protective, desperate, fierce, made Marcus's foot hit the brake before logic could stop him. He'd learned not to ignore that instinct. It had kept him alive through worse nights than this. Marcus pulled over, rain soaking through his jacket the second he stepped out. As he got closer, he saw her face clearly. Mid-30s maybe, with dark hair plastered against hollow cheeks. But it was her eyes that stopped him cold, raw desperation mixed with something harder. Defiance. "Ma'am," Marcus called over the thunder. "You okay?" She looked up sharply, instinctively pulling the baby closer. Defensive. Scared. "We're fine," her voice cracked. "Thanks." She was wearing gray sweats and a thin jacket. No purse. No bags. Nothing. The baby whimpered softly. Couldn't have been more than 6 months old. "You're going to freeze out here," Marcus said gently. "I've got a daughter at home with a sitter. Heading back now. Can I give you a ride? Shelter? Hospital?" The woman's face crumbled. Fresh tears mixed with rain. "I don't," she could barely form words. "I don't have anywhere to go." 5 words that hung in the storm like a confession. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. He knew that look. He'd seen it in the mirror 3 years ago. "Come on," he said quietly. "Let's get you both out of this rain first. Then we'll figure it out." 20 minutes later, Marcus was unlocking his modest 2-bedroom apartment, ushering the shivering woman and infant inside. His neighbor Mrs. Chun gathered her things quickly, asking no questions when Marcus explained there was an emergency. "Towels," Marcus said, already moving. "Dry clothes. I'll make coffee." The woman stood frozen in his entryway, still clutching her baby like she couldn't believe this was real. "I'm Sarah," she whispered. "Sarah Mitchell. This is Emma." "Marcus Reed. Nice to meet you. Wish it were under better circumstances." He handed her towels and one of his flannel shirts. "Bathrooms down the hall. Take your time." While Sarah changed, Marcus checked on his 8-year-old daughter Lily, finding her asleep with a worn teddy bear tucked under her arm. He smiled despite his exhaustion, then headed to make that coffee. When Sarah emerged 15 minutes later, Emma wrapped in a towel and wearing one of Lily's baby blankets, she looked marginally better. But her eyes still carried that hunted look. "Sit," Marcus gestured to the kitchen table. "You don't have to tell me anything. But if you want to talk." Sarah sank into the chair, Emma now sleeping against her chest. She stared at the coffee for a long moment. Then slowly, it came out. "I got out of prison today," she said flatly. 18 months. Possession with intent to distribute, drugs I didn't sell. Her voice went hollow. "My public defender said take the plea. 18 months versus 10 years if I lost at trial. What choice did I have?" Marcus stayed silent, just listening. "I was 7 months pregnant when they arrested me. Emma was born inside." Sarah's hands trembled around the cup. "They let me keep her for 6 weeks. Then foster care. I spent a year fighting to prove I could get her back." "Did you?" Marcus asked carefully. "Today." Sarah's laugh was bitter. "They released us both this morning. Gave me $63, Emma's birth certificate, and an address for a halfway house." She stopped, swallowing hard. The halfway house was full. "They turned us away. No beds for mothers with infants." "What about family? Friends?" "My parents died when I was 19. No siblings." Her voice cracked. "And my friends, you learn who your real friends are when you're arrested. When you're labeled a criminal. A drug dealer. A bad mother." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. "Where were you supposed to go?" I called 5 shelters. All full. The last one said maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I had nowhere else to go. So I just sat there. In the rain. With my baby. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Because he understood that level of desperation. That specific flavor of helplessness. You'll stay here, he said quietly. Sarah's head snapped up. What? No. I couldn't. You'll stay here, Marcus repeated, firmer. I've got a spare room. More of an office, but there's a pull-out couch. It's warm. It's dry. At least until you get on your feet. You don't even know me, Sarah protested. I'm a convicted felon. A complete stranger. I know you're a mother who'd rather sit in freezing rain than put her child in danger, Marcus said steadily. And I know what it's like to need help and have nowhere to turn. His voice softened, carrying weight from old wounds. I can't fix everything. But I can give you a safe place tonight. Tomorrow, we'll figure out the rest. Sarah put her face in her hands, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. What she didn't know, what Marcus hadn't told her yet, was that his own past was darker than she could imagine. And the man who destroyed his life 3 years ago was the same prosecutor who'd put Sarah behind bars. If you're feeling this story, don't forget to subscribe, because what happens next will change everything you think you know about justice. Morning light crept through the windows. Marcus woke to his daughter's voice cutting through the quiet. Dad, there's a lady and a baby in the office. He found Lily standing in the doorway, staring wide-eyed at Sarah and Emma curled up on the pull-out couch. Buddy, keep it down, Marcus whispered, steering her toward the kitchen. We have guests. Let me explain. Over pancakes, his only specialty, Marcus gave Lily an age-appropriate version of the night before. His daughter listened with that serious expression she got when processing something heavy. So they're staying with us? Lily asked. For a little while. I need you on your best behavior, okay? They've been through a lot. Lily nodded solemnly. Like we were. After the trial. Marcus pulled his daughter into a tight hug. She rarely mentioned those days. Yes, sweetie. Kind of like that. Sarah appeared in the doorway, Emma on her hip. I'm so sorry. We didn't mean to impose. Pancakes, Marcus interrupted, gesturing to the table. Fair warning, they're not gourmet. Over breakfast, Sarah slowly opened up more. She'd been a nursing assistant before her arrest. Single mom. Emma's father had disappeared when he found out about the pregnancy. The drugs they'd found in her apartment belonged to her then roommate, who'd vanished the day before the raid. Public defender said it didn't matter, Sarah said quietly. My name was on the lease. The drugs were in my home. District attorney said he'd push for maximum sentencing if I didn't plead guilty. What was the DA's name? Marcus asked, though something in his gut already knew the answer. William Hartwell. Sarah's voice went flat. He gave this whole speech in court about how people like me were poisoning communities. How I was choosing drugs over my unborn child. Her hands shook. I wasn't even using. The toxicology reports proved it. Didn't matter. Marcus's knuckles went white around his coffee cup. William Hartwell. The same prosecutor who'd railroaded him 3 years ago. The same man who'd built a political career on wrongful convictions and destroyed lives. You know him, Sarah said, reading Marcus's expression. Yeah, Marcus said grimly. I know him. 3 years ago, Marcus had been an EMT. First responder. He'd arrived at a scene where a teenager had overdosed at a party. Rich kid. Mayor's nephew. Marcus did everything by the book, but the kid didn't make it. Hartwell had prosecuted Marcus for negligent homicide. Claimed Marcus had delayed treatment. Planted evidence suggesting Marcus had been drinking on shift. The case fell apart eventually, but not before Marcus lost his medical license, his career, his savings on legal fees, and nearly lost custody of Lily. The charges were dropped, but the damage was done. No one wanted to hire an EMT accused of killing a patient, even if he was innocent. Marcus had to start over in construction, living paycheck to paycheck. Hartwell destroyed my life to protect the mayor's reputation, Marcus said quietly. Made me the scapegoat so no one would ask why a 15-year-old was at an unsupervised party with drugs. Sarah's eyes widened. He did the same thing to me. My roommate, the one whose drugs they were, her brother was a state senator. She disappeared, and suddenly I was the drug dealer. A pattern was emerging. A sickening, clear pattern. How many others? Sarah whispered. Marcus had wondered the same thing for 3 years. How many innocent people had Hartwell convicted to advance his career? To protect the powerful? To pad his conviction rate? Days turned into weeks. An unexpected routine formed. Marcus left early for construction sites. Sarah watched Lily and Emma, slowly rebuilding her life piece by piece. She applied for jobs, made calls, navigated the impossible maze of being an ex-convict trying to start over. Marcus would come home to find dinner cooking and the apartment filled with something it hadn't held in years: laughter. Lily and Emma playing. Sarah humming while she folded laundry. But underneath the domestic peace, something else was brewing. Marcus started researching. Late nights after everyone was asleep, he dug through public records, court documents, news archives. He found pattern after pattern. Young defendants. Public defenders who barely fought. Convenient plea deals. And always, connections to powerful people who walked away clean while someone else took the fall. 23 cases in 5 years. 23 lives destroyed. Sarah noticed the late nights, the obsessive research. "What are you doing?" she asked one evening, finding him surrounded by printed documents. "Building a case," Marcus said simply. "Against Hartwell." "Marcus, he's the district attorney now. He's untouchable." "No one's untouchable." Marcus looked up, and Sarah saw something dangerous in his eyes. "He thinks he's safe because we're nobodies. Ex-convicts. Disgraced EMTs. People the system already threw away. He doesn't think we matter." "We don't," Sarah said bitterly. "That's the point. Then we find someone who does." Marcus pulled out a folder. 3 months ago, a journalist named Rebecca Chun started investigating wrongful convictions. She's connected to someone at the state attorney general's office. Someone who apparently hates Hartwell. Sarah's breath caught. "You think they'd listen?" "I think if we give them enough evidence, they won't have a choice." Marcus spread the documents across the table. "But I need your help. I need to find the others. The people Hartwell railroaded. If we can get even 5 of them to come forward together." "It's still our word against his," Sarah interrupted. "We're convicted felons, Marcus. Damaged goods. Who's going to believe us?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that made Sarah's blood run cold. "I recorded him. 3 years ago, after my charges were dropped. Hartwell called me. Threatened me. Said if I ever spoke publicly about my case, he'd make sure I lost custody of Lily permanently." "You have proof of witness intimidation?" Sarah's legal mind, rusty from disuse but still sharp, kicked in. "By a sitting district attorney?" "On a thumb drive hidden in my toolbox." Marcus smiled grimly. "I've been waiting 3 years for the right moment to use it. I think that moment just arrived." What Marcus and Sarah didn't know was that William Hartwell had just announced his candidacy for state attorney general. His campaign was built on his tough on-crime record. His conviction rate. His success in cleaning up the streets. And he absolutely could not afford anyone digging into how he'd achieved that success. The war was coming. They just didn't know Hartwell had already started fighting it. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning while Marcus was at work. Sarah opened it on his laptop, hands trembling as she read. "Mr. Reed, this is Rebecca Chun, investigative journalist with the Seattle Tribune. I received an anonymous tip suggesting you might have information regarding District Attorney William Hartwell's prosecutorial conduct. I'd like to meet. This number is secure." Sarah immediately called Marcus. She responded. "The journalist. She wants to meet." That evening, they sat across from Rebecca Chun in a quiet coffee shop. She was younger than they expected, early 30s, sharp eyes, recording device already on the table. "I've been investigating Hartwell for 8 months, Rebecca said without preamble. "Started as a story about wrongful convictions. became something much bigger. But I need witnesses willing to go on record. People he's hurt who'll speak publicly. Marcus slid the thumb drive across the table. Recorded phone call. Hartwell threatening me 3 years ago after my case was dismissed. Witness intimidation by a prosecutor. Rebecca's eyes widened. You're serious? Dead serious. Marcus leaned forward. But it's not just me. We found 23 cases with the same pattern. Convenient plea deals. Defendants with no resources. Powerful people walking away clean. 23. Rebecca's expression shifted from interested to riveted. Can you prove it? Sarah opened her bag, pulling out a thick folder. Court documents. Public records. Timeline showing connections between defendants and politically connected individuals. It's all circumstantial, but the pattern is clear. Rebecca flipped through the documents, her jaw tightening with each page. This is Jesus. This is a systemic corruption case. She looked up. But I need more than documents. I need people. Victims willing to testify. We'll find them, Sarah said quietly. Give us 2 weeks. What followed was the hardest 2 weeks of their lives. Marcus and Sarah split a list of names, people Hartwell had convicted on questionable evidence. Most doors slammed in their faces. Some people were too scared, others too broken. A few had died. But slowly, painfully, they found 5 willing to talk. David Martinez, 42, served 3 years for assault he didn't commit. His victim was a councilman's son who'd started the fight. David lost his business, his marriage, everything. Angela Foster, 29, convicted of embezzlement at her office. The real thief was her boss's daughter. Angela served 18 months and was now working 3 part-time jobs, blacklisted from accounting. James Cooper, 55, former teacher imprisoned for distribution. Drugs belonged to a student whose father was a police captain. James lost his pension and his reputation. Tanya Williams, 34, convicted of fraud in a credit card scheme. She was the only black woman in an office where 3 white employees were actually responsible. She served 2 years. They got promotions. Each story was a variation on the same theme. Powerless people sacrificed to protect powerful ones. Hartwell's conviction rate climbing on the backs of the innocent. Marcus coordinated everything through burner phones and encrypted emails. Rebecca connected them with a lawyer named Michael Torres from the Attorney General's office, someone who'd been building a case against Hartwell independently but lacked witnesses. This is enough, Torres told them in a secret meeting. With your testimonies, the recording and the pattern evidence, we can bring charges. Civil rights violations. Witness intimidation. Prosecutorial misconduct. When? Sarah asked. Hartwell announces his Attorney General campaign officially next week. Big press conference. That's when we hit him. Torres's smile was cold. Maximum publicity. Maximum damage. But 3 days before the press conference, everything went wrong. Marcus came home to find his apartment ransacked. Drawers pulled out. Couch cushions slashed. His research, 3 months of documents, gone. Sarah stood in the middle of the chaos, Emma crying in her arms, face pale. They took everything. Every document. Every printed record. The thumb drive. Marcus asked, heart pounding. I hid it. The way you showed me. Sarah's voice shook. But Marcus, they left something. On the kitchen table sat a single envelope. Inside, a printed message, drop this, or Child Protective Services gets a call about the convicted felon living with a minor. The ex-EMT who lost his license for negligence. Think they'll let you keep your daughters. Marcus felt ice flood his veins. Hartwell knew. He'd known all along. And now he was threatening the one thing Marcus couldn't risk, Lily. We stop, Sarah said immediately. It's not worth it. I'll leave. I'll figure something else out. You can't lose Lily. No. Marcus's voice was steel. That's exactly what he wants. He thinks threatening our kids will make us back down. He thinks we'll run. Marcus. He doesn't know we made copies. Marcus pulled out his phone. Digital backups. Cloud storage. Everything uploaded to 3 different servers. He got the physical documents. He didn't get the evidence. Sarah's eyes widened. You planned for this. I learned the hard way. Always have a backup. Marcus was already texting Rebecca and Torres. We move the timeline up. We don't wait for his press conference. We hold our own. That's in 2 days, Sarah breathed. Then we have 2 days to prepare. Marcus looked at her, and she saw the same defiance in his eyes that she'd felt that first night in the rain. The refusal to stay down. The determination to fight back. They spent 48 hours rehearsing testimonies, coordinating with Rebecca and Torres, preparing for every possible attack Hartwell might launch. The other 5 victims were briefed. Security was arranged. Everything had to be perfect. The night before the press conference, Sarah found Marcus on the apartment balcony, staring at the city lights. Scared? She asked quietly. Terrified, Marcus admitted. He could still destroy us. Take everything. But I keep thinking, if we don't do this, how many more people does he hurt? How many more lives does he ruin? Sarah took his hand. Then we make sure tomorrow counts. What neither of them knew was that Hartwell had one final card to play. And he was planning to play it at exactly the moment they went public. The real war was about to begin. The press conference was set for 10 a.m. at the courthouse steps. By 9:45, news cameras were already positioned. Rebecca had done her job. Every major outlet in Seattle was there. Marcus stood backstage with Sarah and the other 5 victims, all wearing similar expressions of grim determination. Michael Torres reviewed last-minute details. Everything was ready. Then Marcus's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered. Marcus Reed. Hartwell's smooth voice dripped with false concern. I really hoped you'd reconsider. Such a shame about what's going to happen in about 10 minutes. Marcus's blood went cold. What are you talking about? Check your email. The one going to every news outlet right now. Marcus opened his phone. His inbox flooded with press releases from the DA's office. The subject line made his stomach drop. Breaking, ex-convict and disgraced EMT running coordinated smear campaign against DA. The release was devastating. Photos of Sarah's prison intake. Marcus's mugshot from his arrest 3 years ago. Quotes from anonymous sources claiming they'd been paid by political rivals to fabricate stories. Sealed juvenile records of David Martinez mysteriously leaked. Angela Foster's eviction notices. James Cooper's bankruptcy filing. Every victim's worst moments, packaged and weaponized. You're done, Hartwell said softly. No one will believe criminals and failures. I've already won. Marcus hung up. His hands were shaking. Around him, the others were getting similar calls, seeing the same smears. Angela was crying. David looked ready to bolt. Tanya's face had gone ashen. He's destroying us before we even speak, Sarah whispered. He's going to spin this as desperate criminals lying for attention. Then we changed tactics. Marcus's mind was racing. He turned to Rebecca. You said you had a source inside the AG's office. Someone who hates Hartwell. Who? Rebecca hesitated. The Attorney General herself. Linda Morrison. Hartwell screwed over her daughter in a case 5 years ago. But she can't move without ironclad evidence. Get her on the phone. Now. 3 minutes later, Attorney General Morrison was on speaker. Mr. Reed, I've seen what Hartwell just released. I'm sorry, but without something stronger than testimony. What if I told you Hartwell just committed a federal crime? In the last 10 minutes. Silence. I'm listening. Those sealed records he just leaked? David Martinez's juvenile files? Those are protected by federal law. Only a handful of people have access. Hartwell used his prosecutorial authority to illegally obtain and distribute them. Marcus was thinking faster than he'd ever thought. That's a federal felony. Committed in real time. With a digital trail. Torres jumped in. The press release came from an official DA email server. Time-stamped. Traceable. He just hung himself. Morrison's voice sharpened. Can you prove the files were sealed? I can, David said quietly, stepping forward. I have the court order sealing them. My lawyer gave me a copy when I turned 18. Send it to me. Now. Morrison's tone changed completely. I'm calling the FBI. If what you're saying is true, Hartwell just committed a federal crime to obstruct a corruption investigation. That changes everything. The press conference started late. But when they finally walked out, they weren't alone. Attorney General Morrison stood with them. Behind her, 2 FBI agents. Hartwell was in the crowd, smirking confidently, ready to watch them fail. Morrison spoke first. This morning, District Attorney William Hartwell illegally accessed and distributed sealed juvenile records in an attempt to intimidate witnesses in an ongoing investigation. Federal warrants have been issued. Hartwell's smirk vanished. Then Marcus stepped to the microphone. 3 years ago, William Hartwell destroyed my life to cover up negligence by the mayor's nephew. He threatened me, intimidated me, made sure I'd never work as an EMT again. He held up his phone. I have the recording. All of it. Sarah went next. He sent me to prison for drugs that weren't mine to protect a state senator's daughter. I lost 18 months with my newborn. I lost everything. One by one, the others spoke. David, Angela, James, Tanya. Each story more damning than the last. Each one a piece of the pattern. Rebecca presented the timeline. 23 cases. 40 documented instances of misconduct. A systematic abuse of power spanning 5 years. Hartwell tried to leave. FBI agents blocked his path. You're nobodies, he hissed at Marcus. Criminals. Failures. No one will care. You're right, Marcus said quietly. We are nobodies. That's exactly why you thought you could destroy us without consequences. You forgot that nobodies have nothing left to lose. The FBI arrested William Hartwell on the courthouse steps. Cameras captured everything. The charges: federal civil rights violations, witness tampering, illegal disclosure of sealed records, obstruction of justice. By evening, the state bar had opened an investigation. By the next morning, Hartwell had resigned. By the end of the week, his political career was finished. But the real victory came 3 months later, when all 23 victims had their convictions vacated. Records expunged. Lives given back. 6 months after Hartwell's arrest, Marcus stood in his new office. Not construction, he'd gotten his EMT license reinstated. The state had expedited the process, with a formal apology and back pay for the 3 years he'd lost. Sarah walked in carrying coffee, Emma toddling behind her on unsteady legs. She'd been hired by the city's largest hospital. Not just any position, head of their patient advocacy program. Her prison record had been expunged, but more importantly, her story had become her strength. Ready for your first day back? Sarah asked, handing him the coffee. Marcus looked at the EMT uniform hanging on the back of the door. More than ready. Lily burst through the door, home from school. Dad. Miss Chen called. They want us on that podcast thing. The one about justice reform. Rebecca Chen's investigative series had won national awards. The story of how 7 nobodies took down a corrupt DA had sparked reforms across 3 states. Hartwell was currently serving a 5-year federal sentence. His lawyer had tried arguing he was just doing his job. The jury hadn't bought it. What do you think? Marcus asked Sarah. Another interview? Only if they let us talk about the others, Sarah said firmly. Over the past months, they'd helped connect 12 more of Hartwell's victims with legal resources. 8 had their convictions overturned. The other 4 were still fighting. Emma grabbed Marcus's hand. She'd started calling him Papa 3 months ago. It had made both adults cry. Actually, Sarah said carefully, I wanted to talk to you about something else. She pulled out an envelope. Remember how we said we'd take things slow? Figure out what we were doing. Marcus's heart started pounding. Yeah. Emma needs stability. Lily needs a complete family. Sarah's voice was shaking slightly. And I need to stop pretending I'm not completely in love with you. Marcus crossed the room in 2 steps, pulling her into his arms. I was wondering when you'd figure that out. So you knew. Sarah laughed through tears. Sarah, I knew the night I pulled over in the rain. Marcus kissed her forehead. I just didn't know if you'd ever trust me enough to see it. Lily and Emma started jumping around them, not entirely understanding but caught up in the joy. That evening, after the girls were asleep, Marcus and Sarah sat on their balcony. Their balcony now. Sarah had officially moved in last month. You know what Hartwell said that last day? Marcus said quietly. That we were nobodies. That no one would care. He was right about one thing, Sarah said. We were nobodies. The system had already thrown us away. But that's exactly why we won. Marcus took her hand. He thought being nobody meant we had no power. He forgot that people with nothing left to lose are the most dangerous people in the world. Because we had nothing to protect except the truth. Sarah squeezed his hand. And each other. Below them, the city hummed with life. Somewhere out there, other people were facing their own Hartwells. Other nobodies being crushed by systems designed to protect the powerful. But somewhere out there, someone would remember this story. Remember that justice isn't about being powerful or important or connected. It's about being brave enough to stand up when standing up seems impossible. Hartwell destroyed our lives, Marcus said softly. He tried to destroy us again when we fought back. But all he really did was show us what we were capable of. The best revenge isn't just beating them, Sarah added. It's becoming something they never thought you could be. Marcus thought about the scared, broken man he'd been 3 years ago. About the woman shivering in the rain with her infant, convinced she had nowhere left to go. They'd both been destroyed. Both counted out. Both labeled as failures by a system that valued power over justice. And they'd still won. Not because they were special. Not because they were lucky. But because they'd refused to accept that being nobody meant accepting injustice. What Hartwell never understood, Sarah said, is that everybody is somebody to someone. We weren't nobodies. We were a father protecting his daughter. A mother fighting for her child. People who'd lost everything except the one thing he couldn't take, our refusal to disappear quietly. Marcus pulled her closer. And now we make sure no one else has to fight alone. Sarah smiled. We were saved because one person stopped in the rain. Maybe we can be that person for someone else. 2 years later, Marcus and Sarah opened a legal advocacy center for wrongfully convicted individuals. Funded by their settlement from the city. Staffed by volunteers who'd been through the system themselves. Hartwell served his full sentence. No early release. No special treatment. Just time to think about the lives he'd destroyed. The 23 victims? Most rebuilt their lives. Some better than others. But all of them free. As for Marcus and Sarah, they got married in a small ceremony with Lily and Emma as flower girls. 2 broken people who'd saved each other by refusing to stay broken. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemy. It's building something beautiful from the ruins they left behind. It's proving that nobodies can become somebodies. That justice isn't just for the powerful. And sometimes it starts with one person stopping in the rain for a stranger who's lost everything except hope. If this story moved you, subscribe to hear more stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Because your story isn't over yet. And sometimes the darkest nights lead to the brightest dawns.